Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to the October edition of 1 Month to a More Effective Compliance program. This is the only monthly compliance program focusing on a different subject, taking a deep dive so that it will help you have a more effective compliance program. This month, I will be talking about 1 month to more effective compliance for business ventures. But first, a word from this month's sponsor, the Volkov Law Group.
Hi, I'm Mike Volkov of the Volkov Law Group and proud sponsor of this month's podcast series. The Volkov Law Group believes that every company should have a robust ethics and compliance program. Experience and research show that ethical companies are better performers in the global marketplace. At ethical companies, employees believe in the company, they feel vested in the company, and are more productive. As a result, misconduct rates are much lower and financial performance is higher. We can help you achieve these benefits through an effective ethics and compliance program. The Volkov Law Group specializes in corporate compliance, internal investigations, and white-collar defense. We are your partners in our joint mission of building an effective ethical culture for your company. Our 10 years experience shows that business cultures can change. We are committed to work with you to achieve an ethical culture in your company. We address your company's anti-corruption, antitrust, trade and sanctions, anti-money laundering, and other regulatory and legal risks. We do this through practical guidance that your company can easily implement. You can learn more about our commitment to effective ethics and compliance programs at our website, www.volkovlaw.com, our award-winning blog, Corruption, Crime, and Compliance, and our new podcast series of the same name. You can contact me at my email address, mvolkov@volkovlaw.com. Let us know how we can help you achieve your goals.
Thank you, Michael. In this month's series, we will take a look at the role of compliance in mergers and acquisitions, the role of compliance in joint ventures, in joint venture agreements, distributorships, franchises, teaming agreements, partnerships, as well as other types of business relationships. At the end of October, you have an excellent grounding in what you need to do for a business venture under the FCPA. My 1 month series of 1 month to a more effective compliance program running through 2017 is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. Hello, everyone. Tom Fox here for day 22 of 1 month to more effective compliance for business ventures. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different because I've asked my good friend in this month's podcast sponsor, Mike Volkov, the CEO of the Volkov Law Group, to come on and talk about what I think has been the biggest lesson that certainly I have learned in this month of 1 month more to a more effective compliance program. And that is that business ventures are different animals than sales agents, commission sales agents, representatives, or people that generally help you sell products on the sales side of things. So we've talked about joint ventures, we've talked about franchises, we've talked about distributors, teaming agreements, partners, strategic alliances. Those are really different. And so Mike has written on this and he's thought about it a lot. So I thought it might be fun and certainly a little bit different to shake things up a bit, to ask Mike to come on and really help us understand why business ventures are different from agents on the sales side. So Mike, with that somewhat long-winded introduction, welcome and thanks for taking the time to visit with this very unique topic with us today.
Well, thanks, Tom. It's always a pleasure to work with you. And I've really enjoyed the series, and I've enjoyed, we're very proud to sponsor your activities. Obviously, we think the world of you, and we think that you make real significant contributions to sort of the compliance environment, and particularly in this area where I think that there has been less attention paid to it. And I guess I can't figure out the reason why, because we always hear about the classic sort of agent, sales agent role in anti-corruption compliance. And there are so many other types of ventures where I think when the Justice Department or SEC applies certain criteria, that they may fall within the, area where these people could be, or these arrangements could involve additional risks that are created for, let's say, Company A that's setting up, relationships with other entities. So, and the first, and for whatever reason, Tom, I don't know, it seems like I haven't seen many sort of joint venture enforcement cases. But back in like 2010, 2011, and 12, we saw a lot with Panalpina, and some of the other ones in terms of, joint venture enforcement actions, Bonnie Island and other things like that. So,
actually, Mike, we've had a fair number that have come out of China where a U.S. company enters the Chinese market. They have some sort of relationship with a Chinese company. They enter into a joint venture relationship, and then they end up buying out the Chinese partner so that they actually bring the joint venture into the company. And unfortunately, by that time, the corruption is so established and ingrained that it continues. And it's, as I like to say, it's no longer them doing bribery and corruption. It's now you doing bribery and corruption. But really, you point out the differences in a great series you had on joint ventures, and you said that there were both inside risk and outside risk. So I thought maybe you could explain what those risks are and really how those are different than a sales agent.
I've actually found that joint ventures are, depending on how they're structured, can be really complex and difficult compliance projects. So, for example, let's say Company A is American, with the A for America, and Company C is a Chinese state-owned entity. And, the likelihood of forming a joint venture with China is very high because that's the price they usually require, usually to get access to your intellectual property. So here we have a joint venture of A and C. And what I like to, when I look at a joint venture with a state-owned enterprise, there are what I call inside risks, which are what is the nature of your relationship with the joint venture? How do you interact with the joint venture partner? And I don't think we can't apply the traditional third-party due diligence risk management of the agent or distributor model, because here people could make, they could look at how first of all did the joint venture come about? What is the role of the state-owned entity? What are they contributing to the joint venture? And the last thing that you want to have is a joint venture that's founded on one principle, which is, okay, we're bringing in the state-owned entity, and they're going to grease the wheels for us with every government agency we have to deal with. That's going to be their expertise that they bring to us. Well, we got to be really careful in setting that up from the beginning, because hopefully they have more than just their ability to get things done throughout the government in China to the joint venture. Because by definition, then at the establishment phase, you're creating risks in terms of why you're even bringing them to the joint venture. Because I don't want to have a joint venture partner that's just based on go and make sure that nobody in the government gets in our way. Then you have to look at how was this created, why was it created this way, what were the incentives of everybody, and what were the roles that everybody was going to take on with regard to the business operation. So let's say you have a 50-50 joint venture. Then you have a situation where the joint venture itself, let's say the new entity AC, has what kind of decisions are they going to make? Are they going to retain third parties? Are they going to retain distributors? Are they going to use lobbyists and consultants to facilitate the joint venture's operations? And then look at it in this situation where, let's say we're equal 50-50. I can't give up the control of my joint venture to allow the government entity to hire agents they want to hire distributors they want to hire without my having input or my having the ability to say no. So many of my clients who have joint ventures with high risk and, with government entities in high risk countries, one of the things we have really insisted on is that they have control. And so they may have 51%, they may have 3 out of 5 management seats on a management board, but I want my client to have control because I don't ever want to cede control to a state-owned entity or to even a high-risk partner who then can make decisions on behalf of the joint venture, because then I get, like I think, your reference early on, I could end up having liability created by my inability to stop certain transactions and allowing them to go on and sticking with the joint venture and not terminating my relationship. So that's a long-winded way of saying this is incredibly high risk that requires more than just third-party, risk management strategies, because you need to get into the guts of the business, how it operates and how it's going to operate and how it was created, and then how is it going to operate. And that's the way I divide this sort of sets of risks.
So that's really...
and I think it's really difficult, Tom, because then you run into local restrictions in certain countries where they have to have, the joint venture partner has to have 50% ownership at least. Sometimes they even say 51. So that, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, that really hits for me, Mike, what I think is the really big and important distinction between business ventures and third-party sales agents. Certainly, you still have to do your due diligence. You still have to do your background investigation, all of the steps leading up to the contract being signed. But that's where I think it differs, because you have a much bigger governance role in a joint venture, or indeed any other business venture, whether that be teaming partner, strategic alliance, right, distributor, franchise relationship. You're going to actually have to govern and be a part of, both in terms of the controls, but also in terms of the contractual rights you have to detect, prevent, and remediate. And that's where I don't think a lot of companies are really, they don't have that baked into their risk management process. So that was one of the things that really struck me in doing the research in the podcast series this month.
Yeah, that's a really good point, in the sense of, I don't think that we have, I think the controls that I've seen people put in place in joint ventures tend to be very immature, in the sense of, it's like, okay, if there's bribery, we can walk away from the deal. But what about audit rights? What about looking at the books? What if they use the joint venture as a means to funnel bribe payments through it? There's so many risks that I can think of, and to be honest with you, it's hard to address all the permutations in advance. You can't use just the standard reps and warranties that we've seen a million times. You have to get into, how is this business going to operate? Who has control of the money is always critical. And, there has to be, by definition, there has to be something that the state-owned entity or the, let's say, Chinese entity is bringing to the table that's got to be of value to the joint venture. Once you see that area of value, then that's an area that becomes a bribery risk, because it's going to relate to something that's critical to the operation of the business. And that's why it's much more complex. And your whole notion of business ventures and the kind of risks that can get created are really, it's a much more complex area than people think, I think, at first glance. And like I've seen it I haven't been involved as much with teaming agreements or strategic alliances, but I've had sort of business development type of strategic alliances. And, those can get into areas as well, particularly with, well-funded, big companies getting together and doing strategic alliances. So I worry about that. The other area where, and I think this is, I've always thought that there should be more attention paid to this area is the franchise area, because I've seen people try to categorically say franchisees or franchises can never raise third-party risks, or things like that. You can't make a categorical judgment by putting a label on it. And you have to look at the nature of the relationship between the parties in a franchise. And I've seen such a variety of franchise agreements, that I don't think I can think of franchise agreements that don't raise as significant a risk. And then I can think of some that I've seen where I thought there were real risks in terms of, them being the franchisee being categorized more as a agent or somebody under your control as the franchisor. So I think in all of these situations, outside of the classic agent and distributor situation, I would say in general, we have to take a real hard look at the nature of the business venture, how it's operating, why the people have gotten together, and then look at the intricacies of the business and sort of apply, traditional risk analysis to it. And I think you come up with very different types of issues than you do with the classic sales agent.
So, Mike, this has really been an interesting exploration for me. I think that you've absolutely hit on it, that many compliance practitioners have not thought through the specific risks of business ventures as opposed to sales agents or representatives on the sales side of things. I hope that this month's podcast series and you're talking about it, you're being on this podcast, and your sponsorship will help facilitate a discussion that maybe people will begin to think about more of the issues and more of the risk, and perhaps put a better risk management strategy in place. So I wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast and giving me your thoughts, and I look forward to continuing the conversation in another forum. This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of 1 Month to More Effective Compliance for Business Ventures, and I hope you will join me again. Tomorrow, on November 1st, we will begin a new month series, which will be 1 month of 360-degree view of communications in compliance. It will be sponsored by Dun & Bradstreet. It will be a fascinating look at the multiple and new ways that you can communicate your compliance regime, your compliance program, and also your culture of compliance throughout your organization, to your customer base, and to your third parties, and of course, to your joint venture partners and other business ventures. This month's podcast series of 1 Month to More Effective Compliance for Business Ventures was sponsored by the Volkov Law Group, and I'd like to give them a big shout out for sponsoring this month's series. Finally, my series this year of 1 Month to a More Effective Compliance program, where I take a deep dive each month into a different topic of compliance, is part of the Compliance Podcast Network.